Good morning. In 1 John 4:8 it says, those who do not love do not know God, for God is love, right? So in 1 John 4, 27 times it talks about the love of God. And the emphasis is that you are loved by God. And the majority of us that call ourselves Christians would say, yeah, I know I'm loved by God. But the litmus test for that, or what your life is marked with, as John teaches, is that your life is marked with a fearlessness. Perfect love casts out all fear. And a freedom, right, that becomes from being loved, a loved child of God. When we understand that, and that gets rooted back into us, we become fearless and free. But the problem is what happened back in the garden. There was this harmony, this shalom. They were connected to the love of God. And then by their choice to be autonomous from God or separate from God, wanted to be their own, they were cut off from that security of the love of God being in their life. So now we come into the world broken. We come into the world in fear. We come into the world in need of love. So the first 45 years of my life, my life was marked by that fear and anxiety and searching for that love and acceptance out there, right? So what happens in that? Now all of a sudden, when I say that I love you to someone, it's really not meaning that I love them. It's saying, I need you to love me. At the root of it, that's what it is. I love you. I need you to be something for me that you cannot be. I need you to fill that brokenness and that emptiness that's within me. You know, love is a beautiful thing, right? But it should be unconditional. It should be not about what you're receiving. It's about an overflow. And that's what happens when we reconnect to the love source of God and we understand who we truly are. Our lives are marked with a fearlessness and a freedom, not an insecurity and a brokenness that comes from what happened in the fall. There's I heard a story about this. It was a pastor actually, and he was married for like 20 years and had older kids, and his wife basically got to the point of meeting someone online and ended up sending him divorce papers. Well, he ended up in his room for like 4 days and just cried out and was completely broken, right? And he got to the point where he was just on the floor and yelling at God and all this stuff. And finally, man, God convicted his heart in that moment, saying the reality of it was, your heart has never once in these 4 days cried out for the brokenness of your wife that you supposedly loved unconditionally, that she's in bondage to something, right? And another pastor friend of mine said that if my wife left me, right, and she cheated on me or did that, my heart wouldn't break for me, it would break for her and where she is. That's that unconditional thing, and knowing who you are. Of course it's going to hurt, but at the same time, are you loving someone for you, or are you loving someone for them because you see their value? How could Jesus, he says, you've heard it said that you need to love your friends, but I say you need to be able to love your enemy. How can you do that unless, see, he knew who he was. He was connected to the love source of God, so he's able to love unconditionally rather than conditionally. So when you read in 1 Corinthians 13, when the love, which you hear at all weddings, love is patient, love is kind, love never keeps record of wrong. How you doing on that? Right? See, the way that we're able to do that is understand at our core that we are truly loved and accepted by God, right? And then that sets us free to love unconditionally, even our enemies, right? Because you're so secure in your identity as being a loved child of God, right? And we don't have to earn that. We just have to understand who he is and what he's done. And the more we understand about God, the more we understand his love, right? And then that sets us free to be able to love others unconditionally. The great commandment is to love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your spirit, and love your neighbor as yourself. And that comes from understanding who we are and whose we are, right? And that sets us free to be able to love unconditionally, right? So I hope you can experience that love of God that sets you free from the bondage of self, because that's what it was. That pastor basically got to that point of understanding that where he was coming from was a total place of, it was all about him. And, you know, that's where the enemy wants us. He wants us to be so inward focused and insecure. That's what it is. We become inward focused and insecure. But when we can become secure in our identity as a child of God, it sets us free. Will we get everything right? No, but we can love someone unconditionally instead of always hoping that that person is going to fulfill that brokenness and that emptiness that's within, because that's how we come into the world. But we don't have to live that way. We can just say, God, help me. I need you, Lord. I want to know more about you. I believe, but help my unbelief. Just help me, Lord, today in my path, and continue to transform me. Instead of this being a compartmentalized Christianity of, you know, it being about me at the core, help me to die to myself today and experience something more, something deeper. Change me, transform me more into your image day by day. That's all it is. It's just a pursuit. It's not a perfection, it's a pursuit. So when we can pursue God, He will change you. You know, seek and you shall find. Humble yourself before the Lord, and He will, and admit your dependence on Him. He will lift you up and give you honor. You will become more and more like the one that you believe in. God bless y'all.